I'd like to update you and the rest of the board on the Oversight Board's efforts since our last public convening. Recent activities focused on three primary topics. First, we certified and updated multiple fiscal plans that promote economic growth and have continued working with the government to implement key fiscal plan priorities. Second, we worked closely with the government to develop the 2024 budget proposal for the Commonwealth and each instrumentality. And finally, we continued pursuing all efforts to allow PREPA to exit bankruptcy. In the past few months, the Oversight Board certified 7 updated fiscal plans. Collectively, these fiscal plans turn from stabilizing government's finances to investments in our future. They are transformation plans, forward-looking and focused on the choices and investments that will help to restore and prosperity to the people of Puerto Rico after this long period of crisis and decline. The newly certified fiscal plans give the island the opportunity to take this moment at the end of bankruptcy, fiscal stability and economic stimulus, and mark the beginning of another era of growth. As the beginning of real change, the beginning of a period of success, economic growth is the key to unlock that future. Every law, every political decision, every reform, every investment must be viewed through the lens of economic growth. That is why the newly certified fiscal plans double down on priority initiatives to restore market access and accelerate economic growth. It is why they include strategic investments to promote economic development, infrastructure that the island needs, so Puerto Rico can turn this recovery into sustainable growth and an economy that provides opportunities for all. All of the fiscal plans, from the Commonwealth to PREPA to PRASA to HTA and CRIM and others, contain similar themes. They seize the current opportunity to invest in Puerto Rico's growth, to have safer roads, cleaner water, and reliable energy, promote a culture of public sector excellence, and more. But some risks do, however, still exist. In the near term, economic growth has rebounded strongly after the COVID-19 pandemic, as it has in other parts of the country. To a large part, this recovery is driven by unprecedented influx of federal funds. These recovery funds present a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to rebuild the island's economy. Puerto Rico has access to over $120 billion in federal recovery funds, equivalent to over 150% of the GNP in the term of disaster relief funding and COVID-19 stimulus. To put this into context, when I was budget director of New York State, the federal funding equivalent would have been $3 trillion to the state of New York. It is an extraordinary opportunity by any measure. But our analysis does not point to sustainable economic growth if these funds are not invested to stimulate growth. If we strip the effects of the relief funds from an economic projections, Puerto Rico's growth would show a decline over the next 5 years. And even now, Puerto Rico's underlying GDP, including federal funds, while climbing, has not returned to 2016 levels. Some economists may argue about the specific data points, but when I sit down with the economists of the island, they don't challenge the overall trend. The point is simple. We need to be focused and we need to act, and we are starting to see the initial signs of the turnaround. Growth and overall revenue collections are starting to slow, and at the end of May, both the government and the Oversight Board now forecast that revenue collections will be lower than the updated forecast for the current year, but still higher than last year. And this is a trend that we're seeing across the country. So the Oversight Board will continue to monitor this trend. If we work together and implement the reforms in the fiscal plans, however, I am confident we can continue to attract innovation, the capital, workforce, and economic growth required to provide a better future for all. Let me now turn to the 2024 budget process. Many months of deliberation between the government and the Oversight Board, between the staffs and elected officials, went into the preparations of this year's budgets. The budgets set the government's spending priorities for the next 12 months, in conformance with the respective fiscal plans. A government budget is to many just numbers on a page, but each number has meaning and they indicate priorities. Each number in this year's budget has a different effect on the lives of Puerto Rico's residents. These budgets should all be viewed in the context of Puerto Rico's need to maintain fiscal stability while providing for its citizens. The basic principles of budgeting are simple. These principles apply to municipal governments just like they apply to households and families. There's always a temptation to borrow in order to spend more than you can afford. But eventually the bill has to come due, and it came due. Fiscal year 2022, which ended in June 30 of last year, was the first fiscal year for which the government provided the Oversight Board with a general fund budget that the Oversight Board could certify as compliant with the fiscal plan. However, during the year, incremental expenses throughout the year were passed by the legislature, and we worked with the government to identify resources to fund these costs. During fiscal year 2022, the Oversight Board, per promesa, reviewed at least 5 laws that would have increased annual costs by over $312 million outside of the certified budget. As a result of the Oversight Board's review and scoring, however, the board worked with the government to identify funding for these laws so that they were offset within the certified budget. For the current year, 2023, the legislature did not submit a timely and compliant budget to the Oversight Board for certification. As a result, the Oversight Board in 2023 was required to certify a budget for the Commonwealth and then submit it to the government. Further, the government continued its trend of passing laws during the fiscal years that reduced revenues or increased expenditures without identifying ways to pay for the incremental costs. By the time the Oversight Board terminates, the government must be able to pass and maintain balanced budgets with a long-term, multi-year financial plan that is in balance. Otherwise, will we end up with deficits and the kind of painful adjustments that were so difficult to implement by elected officials in the past. In every democracy, the right to determine government spending rests with the legislature. It is the legislature's superior right and one of its primary responsibilities. I'm putting such a fine point on this because, as a former budget director, I feel the effect of promesa on the budget process. Congress created the Oversight Board with its fiscal authority for a reason. The reason was a previous bankruptcy, but promesa, however, did not take away the legislature's responsibility to approve and submit a budget. The budget is a key element of fiscal responsibility owed to the people of Puerto Rico. It is the very core of stability. So this year, despite missing multiple deadlines by the legislature, I'm encouraged by the fact that the governor and the legislature have broken with recent history and produced a budget for the central government that is compliant with the fiscal plan for this year. It was passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. I'm very encouraged by this progress, and we hope that this continues. Yesterday, the Oversight Board certified 8 instrumentalities budgets that we also plan to present here today. And now the government has produced a compliant budget. I recommend to the board to certify the central government's 2024 budget as submitted to us and signed by the governor as compliant. This year's budgets are fiscally responsible within Puerto Rico's financial means. They prioritize funding for government services and are critical for the quality of life of Puerto Rico. They fund important investments in future development and growth. And before discussing each certified budget more in detail, I would like to close my remarks by discussing PREPA's transformation. Earlier, I spoke about the need for all decisions to be viewed through the lens of economic growth. Any successful economic plan requires reliable electricity. That is why energy reform was one of the first reforms the Oversight Board tackled. Working with the government, today the PREPA fiscal plan and the transformation process for Puerto Rico's energy system is almost entirely implemented. Working with the government, we broke up the cycle of mismanagement, underinvestment, underperformance of PREPA's inefficient government monopoly. We transferred not ownership, but management of transmission and distribution and legacy generation systems to private operators. Puerto Rico retains these valuable assets, but the government no longer manages them. We created a path to implement the will of Puerto Rico's elected leaders to move aggressively to renewable energy. And the energy system is now overseen by an independent regulator. These are all critical achievements. The building blocks are now in place. This doesn't mean we are done. I live here. I know electricity is not yet reliable. I know PREPA is way behind in moving to renewable energy. Not satisfied, but the point is this. The government and the Oversight Board helped to create a system that can and will improve, rather than being stuck with the old PREPA that would never move, never improve, never change. PREPA had no incentive to change. For Luma and Genera, a lot is at stake. Reputation, business success, and strong financial performance. Luma and Genera cannot survive without successful outcomes for PREPA and, more importantly, its customers. Unlike PREPA, they cannot stand still. I am convinced we will see change. Electricity will become more reliable, more affordable, and cleaner. We are just at the beginning of that change. The transformation is based on accountability. The people of Puerto Rico retain ownership of the grid and power plants and are empowered to hold private operators accountable. Both Luma and Genera must meet objective performance metrics defined by their regulator, PREP. The other important element to this transformation is PREPA's ability to exit bankruptcy. Last week, the Oversight Board certified an updated fiscal plan for PREPA. It provides a roadmap for viable energy system for Puerto Rico that will deliver more reliable, cleaner electricity to its residents and its businesses. From a technical perspective, the new fiscal plan updated projections for electricity demand and costs and outlines efficient deployment of more than $15 billion in federal funding to make significant investments in the energy system. It also reflects other factors, such as households and businesses continuing to switch to more energy-efficient appliances and adding rooftop solar panels. These changes in projections impact the fiscal plan's debt sustainability analysis and the amount of debt affordable under PREPA's plan of adjustment. As a result of PREPA's updated fiscal plan, the Oversight Board recently amended the plan of adjustment to restructure more than $10 billion of debt and other claims against PREPA before pension claims. The Oversight Board has been analyzing carefully and dispassionately how much debt PREPA can pay and made a determination strictly based on the available data. This is why the updated proposal provides for the issuance of consideration worth approximately $2.5 billion to creditors. Ultimately, the guiding principle behind PREPA's debt restructuring is sustainability. In conclusion, as you can see, while there is more ground to cover, we continue to advance the Oversight Board's mission to create a necessary foundation for economic growth and to restore opportunity for the people of Puerto Rico. With that, Mr. Chairman, I recommend we turn to the presentations and the individual budgets that we are going to discuss today. Thank you.